Welcome back to our channel. Today I'm going to explain a movie called Animal Kingdom, Let's Go Ape. So, get comfortable. Main motto of this film is the animals are important not only because of their economic and nutritional importance, but they are also necessary for the sustainability of the ecosystem. The diversity of animals is necessary to maintain the food chains and to stabilize the balance in nature. The film is about 2 million years ago. Deep in the Savannah Desert lives Edward, the eldest son of a primate king. At birth, Edward is considered too small for his tribe and is sent away to be brought up. However, as he grows up he realizes he is no ordinary ape. In a film, Vladimir, the king's faithful advisor, lets the king know there is a problem. Apparently, the queen had given birth to 2 sons instead of 1. The film starts, the apes of Simeon gathering in their ancestral tree to welcome the birth of 2 sons to the king of apes. King Simeon rules over dozens of apes in an old tree somewhere in the Savannah Desert. At first, Monkey Prince is so tiny and weak, but the second monkey is strong and healthy looking. Since the tiny monkey came out first, he is the direct heir to the throne. Then, the monkey witch arrives and advises the king to get rid of the tiny prince as he is a bad omen. She says he is a mistake by nature, and the apes will never accept him as their prince. After that, the king yields and hands the baby to Vladimir to do away with the monkey while the queen sleeps. In a moment, the queen looks for her babies when she wakes up and makes the king promise to take care of them. King Simeon introduces Vanya, the strong and healthy monkey, to the apes. Moreover, Vladimir takes the weak monkey to a cliff to throw it into the mouth of the wolf, but the child clings to Vladimir's hands. Vladimir's allegiance lies with the king, so he throws the monkey and walks away. Meanwhile, the weak monkey is hanging on a vine and the wolf bites one of its hands, but a proboscis monkey saves it. For that, the baby is unable to walk like an ape due to a wolf's bite, so its savior, Ian, allows him to ride on his back. However, Edward is now an adult ape named Edward and still rides on Ian's back. They are good friends who get along, bickering and looking out for each other. We learn that Ian has a speech problem, so he cannot communicate properly. Edward finds a mouse and realizes that the mouse ate his arm, so he tries to catch it with one arm. Later, he discovers tree sap and plans to use it as a trap for the mouse, but horn sounds distract him. After that, the horn announces the beginning of Coco Ball, a sport Ian and Edward love. Ian is reluctant to go since the two are often discriminated against by the other apes. Although, Edward convinces him to go, and they settle in a branch to watch the games. The apes hanging from vines toss the ball around, aiming for a gold shot into the mouth of a skull. While the ball is a coconut fruit and Vanya is the first to score and is applauded by the crowd. Another match begins but gets interrupted when Ian tries to catch the ball but ends up falling headlong with it and throwing off the plates from their vines in the process. After that, the ball bounces off and falls into a hole. The pirates get pissed and surround Ian to beat him up, but Edward thinks of something fast. So, he uses tree sap to get the ball out. The odd primates gather around Edward, asking how he did the magic, but Vanya shows up and takes the ball from Edward. Later, Vanya tries to throw a ball, but his hand is stuck on it by tree sap. The other primates try to get him off it, but they also get stuck. While the ball flies out of their hands and lands on King Simeon's head. Vladimir tries to get it off, but pulls a tuft of hair in the process. The witch notices Edward and asks Vladimir if he disposed of the child as asked. Moreover, she threatens him and sends him off to find a solution. However, Vanya confronts his father about the possibility of another ape taking the throne from him, who promises to do something about it. Later, Edward and Ian are in the nest arguing about the White Mountains Ian always dreams about when Sergei and Marcel show up on the king's orders. Even, Edward is accused of practicing magic, but explains that it is not magic but a few tricks he discovered. He makes a crown from leaves and makes a mirror for the king, who is awed by his facial features. Then, Edward makes a swing for the king and keeps talking to him, but they are attacked by a swarm of insects. King Simeon is thrown off the swing and is accused of attempted murder by the witch. After that, Vanya orders him to be thrown off the cliff, and Ian can do nothing but watch. We learn, King Simeon demands to know who threw Edward off the cliff, accusing Vanya of killing another Simeon. When Edward wakes up to discover he was thrown off the tree and Ian is hanging from a vine. We saw, he leaves Ian and wanders into the desert, where he encounters 2 giant ostriches and learns to stand on 2 feet like them. There, a pack of wolves appear and the trios have to run. Edward starts running forward and is happy that his one arm will no longer be a hindrance to him. So, the trios run into a field filled with rhinos and make it past them until the rhinos see the wolves coming and start running. Now Edward is running from the rhinos and the wolves. Edward reaches the end of the path, and the rhinos start to roll like armadillos. Seeing that Edward is about to be crushed by those rhinos, King Simeon jumps in and tries to save him. He fights off some armadillos but jumps in front of Edward when he sees that he is about to be crushed. However, the chaos dies down and King Simeon is badly injured from the fight. Vanya comes close to them with a vine to help Simeon back up. Although, King Simeon tells Edward that he is his father before he dies. Vanya takes Simeon's body away and tells Edward not to even consider them brothers. When Vanya is crowned king, and he dismisses Vladimir for failing in his duty to get rid of Edward, Sergei takes over Vladimir's work, and the time for Vanya to choose a bride arrives. After that, instead of taking a wife, Vanya makes a declaration that all the apes will be at his disposal, and he has absolute command over all of them. Then, a storm starts and Vladimir is rejected by all the apes. The storm becomes violent, and a tornado appears. Meanwhile, Edward discovers Lucy in the tornado and falls in love with her. He chases after her and they become friends. Edward teaches her to stand on 2 feet, and they discover fire from a volcano. Excited, Edward takes a piece of the fire back to the apes and talks about it. They do not welcome him and stone him on the orders of Vanya. Then, Edward leaves with Lucy, disappointed. He chases a wolf away from its hideout with the fire and settles into the cave with Lucy. That time, the other apes watch Lucy and Edward learn to catch fruit and kill rabbits and other small animals. Edward has also learned to control the wolf. At one moment, the apes leave Vanya and the ancestral tree when they can no longer bear the hunger. After that, the witch summons the tree spirit to frighten the apes, but a young ape, Diego, decides to follow the sound, and they discover that there is no spirit of the tree. It has all been the witch. She tries to eliminate him, but he is saved and reveals the truth. The apes leave the tree and head to Edward and Lucy's cave. Then, a female ape Gazella, who has always loved Vanya, decides to stay back. Lucy does not welcome the apes after what they did to her and Edward. Later, the apes talk to Edward and make him intercede on their behalf. The apes promise to only eat and go, so Lucy lets them in. After all that, the apes build themselves a new village and Lucy and Edward are married and expecting a son. Lucy rests at home while Edward helps the rest of the village with the construction work. So, they can now hunt for their own food and Diego can draw realistic images. An argument arises between Sergei and new primates who are looking for shelter and Sergei banishes them. While Edward tries to pacify them, but a locust invades the village and destroys everything they've been working on. After that, Sergei and the apes are convinced that the witch is responsible for the mess, so they go after her. Lucy tells Edward to save Vanya before the mob gets to the tree. Then, Edward calls for Vanya, but he doesn't respond. The mob arrives at the tree, and Vanya comes out of hiding. We saw, the apes promise to let him go if he gives them the tree, but he promises to let them go alive if they leave on their own. Then, Gazella tries to defend the king, but Sergei orders the apes to beat Vanya. Vanya fights back, but he is overpowered. Edward is also stopped from interfering. Sergei orders the apes to cut open the tree and set it on fire. Eventually, Edward saves Gazella before the tree blows up. However, he is trapped under a burning branch. He calls out to Vanya, who yields and helps Edward. The two run away before the trees blow up. The witch remains in the tree and dies with it. After all that, when they come around, the whole area is filled with smoke. The tree is utterly burnt, and there is nothing left for the apes. Later, Vanya and Edward end their differences and reveal their relationship to the apes. Sergei tries to cause panic among the apes, but Edward, with Vanya's help, calls the apes to order. At the end, he tells them that there's hope for them and talks about the world beyond the White Mountains. Then, the apes follow the birds to the White Mountains, and they discover a world filled with green trees, water, and huge mountains. To see that, the apes are overjoyed. Edward sees Ian again. Lucy watches the two friends dance around and smiles. So, that was all from the video. Please, give us a suggestion of movies you want us to upload next. Thank you for watching and being part of our family. Just to let you know, we are posting videos every day for you. Please subscribe to give us more motivation, and you will not miss our daily video.